The original Deadly Premonition really wasn't on my radar at first. I'm not sure I even heard of it until it was already released and another video was talking about its merits. Curious, I decided to check it out based on the horror elements, the setting, and its inspiration, the classic show Twin Peaks. I've never watched the show, but the strangeness and quirky characters pulled me in. There's a surreal aesthetic to it all, much like a fever dream, while maintaining its unique sense of horror. Sure, it had less than stellar aspects, such as the overall dated look of it all, but there was something about it that shone through and made me love the original Deadly Premonition. So to say I was excited for the Switch exclusive sequel is a bit of an understatement. Could it match the cult status of the original while improving on the weaknesses of that game? The game takes place during the summer of 2005, where we find FBI Special Agent Francis York Morgan, along with a friend in his head, Zach, just roll with it, heading to the town of Le Carre, Louisiana. There, the two are investigating the trail of a new drug called Sang Rouge, but while in town, York encounters plenty of characters, both major and minor, that eventually lead him to the Clarksons, who essentially run the town. Unlike the original game, Deadly Premonition 2 doesn't have much in terms of horror. Really, all there is are the strange monsters that appear at a certain time of night. The game focuses much more on the people of Le Carre and York's investigation into what exactly is happening in this town. As part of his investigation, York talks to plenty of people within the town, and this is really what gives the game its personality, as many help in one way or another. There's Sheriff Melvin Woods, who provides information on the ins and outs of Le Carre, such as how the Clarkson shifts are laid out in their meat processing plant. This in turn allows York to explore that plant without interruption. Melvin also acts as a shopkeep, allowing York to buy restoration items. And that's only one example. There's also Melvin's daughter, Patricia, who provide information on the other townsfolk. But she's more than just an info dispenser. She shares the same love of movies that York does, allowing for a deeper connection. It helps give Le Carre some of its own personality. And speaking of Le Carre, there are a lot of different places to visit and explore. The map of the town is quite large, but nothing on the same scale as something from Grand Theft Auto. Navigation is also kept simple when you realize the town is shaped exactly like its translation, a square. That said, the strangeness of Deadly Premonition is still alive and well as York is guided to different locations to look for objects known as oracles by a shaman, who's a painting. However, that's just the main story, as other townsfolk offer up side quests. Some can be completed at any time, while others are more time sensitive, but they all provide rewards such as new healing items and materials. The materials can then be taken to a voodoo shop and used to create charms, dolls, and other equipable items. These work like equipment and help increase York's stats, improving his attack, defense, health, and shooting prowess. Although the side quests will provide some materials, they can also be found around the town and are often highlighted thanks to the vision system. This helps highlight these items, making them much easier to find around town. It can be used during York's investigation, but I didn't really feel I needed it for those. That said, visions can't be used constantly as there's a meter for York's concentration. It will refill naturally, you just need to manage it a little. The pause menu is referred to as the Red Room, and this is where you can look at the map, configure the controls, read York's journal, and look over the stamps you can unlock by completing certain tasks. They don't really do anything, it's more of an achievement system, but it did point me towards some of the extra activities that can be done in town, like bowling or skipping stones, which are surprisingly fun to play. Oh yeah, York can also skateboard in the game, or more accurately, has to skateboard since his car was stolen. Unfortunately, while it is faster to get around with it, it also tanks the frame rate, which I'll get into more detail on later. But that's only the things you can do around Le Carre. You are here for an investigation after all. This comes in the form of specific rooms that are looked around in first person, much like the investigation portions in Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. The main goal is finding all of the highlighted items yourself, and once done, the events that played out will automatically be pieced together, as outlandish as they may seem. Unfortunately, I wish that I was the one attempting to figure it out because it comes across more as a search and find rather than a proper adventure game. I wanted to, well, investigate and be the detective, like Batman. When not investigating and exploring the town, York does occasionally get into a fight. York can use his fists for close range combat or his gun to take on enemies from a distance. There's no real advantage or disadvantage between the two though, as ammo was plentiful, so it's merely a matter of choice. But what are you fighting? Well, during the day, it's squirrels, who steal materials and items, and dogs, who have decided they want to take a bite out of York. And both can be punched to death quite easily, amazingly enough. Just make sure not to hit civilians, as you will be issued a fine. Dogs though? Yeah, punch away, even though they feel tacked on in terms of being an enemy. There are unique materials that can be taken from the dogs, so I guess that's something. Anyone want a dog tail? It's fresh! Now, I did mention those monsters running around at night earlier, and that's really when combat gets more interesting. These creatures must be a fan of the Clock Tower series because they are equipped with giant scissors, which does give them a different feel from the shadows of the original game. Another thing that's different is that York's gun actually becomes fused with his arm to become powerful enough to deal with these monsters. It can then either be fired once at a time or charged to shoot multiple enemies at once. I didn't find myself using the charge shot too much though, as a well-placed single shot to the head was enough to bring these monsters down. The charge shot is mostly situational. Overall combat feels smooth, but it really comes down to the time when I actually cared. I mostly avoided the animals during the day, but fighting the monsters at night was pretty satisfying. That said, it's still mostly on par with the combat of the original Deadly Premonition. The thing is though, Deadly Premonition 2 doesn't really have any horror to it. There are elements of horror on display, such as the Scissormen, but they're more threatening than actually scary. It almost feels as if the game is in on its own joke now. It doesn't take itself seriously, which serves to separate it from the original game while making it play more like a comedy cop show, with some action-oriented gunplay when enemies are around. I really do miss the horror elements though, as there's an intensity that feels missing. Much like later Resident Evil games, there's more of a focus on action gameplay. And unfortunately, the aesthetic loses its edge as well as it's a much more vibrant and colorful game. And that becomes obvious as soon as you begin. The graphics are extremely dated looking, which is an intentional choice to capture the feeling of the original game. And that does mean it looks like a lower end game on the PS3 or 360. It was something I was able to easily look past, however, as that was part of its charm. What's less easy to forgive are the frame rate drops. When I'm inside a building, it runs completely fine. But as I stepped out into town, the frame rate dropped harshly. And this becomes even worse when York is on the skateboard, which I mentioned earlier, to the point of complete annoyance. I understand that the chugging is supposed to add to the charm of Deadly Premonition 2, as it was there in the original, but there's a difference between being cute and making excuses for poor development. Fast travel does eventually become available, which somewhat mitigates the frame rate issues. But if there are monsters around, then you are guaranteed to get hurt as they'll spawn directly in front of you. It doesn't interrupt the travel, it just serves as a bit of punishment, showing the differences between night and day. There are ways, however, to speed up time if there's something specific you need, such as a certain side quest. This can be done by sleeping in a hotel, camping outside, or simply taking a smoke break. The smoke breaks can only go a predetermined time though, as they can be done anywhere, while sleeping allowed me to choose the specific time. This does lead to another issue in Deadly Premonition 2 though, the load times. They could be pretty long, to the point where I was afraid that the game was going to crash, and in one case it actually did. It was only once though, but let's just say that the game might not be the best optimized. Fortunately, the sound design is solid all around, with the voice acting being a particular high point.
We're always surrounded by easy ways to die, you know. Some people even get randomly struck by lightning and die right there on the spot.
Then I reckon you also know that secondhand smokers have 1.3 times greater the risk compared to smokers?
Of course.
Higher Cast does a great job with York himself being a standout. His original voice actor even comes back for the role. Punching and shooting is extremely satisfying, though the skateboard, once again, no fun, as the sound of the spinning wheels is far too loud.
The city was built in a swamp, so the ground is soft. All it takes is some heavy rain to cave it all in.
As far as the music, it's fine, with none of the tracks really standing out for me. The original has a beat in that regard. Let's be honest, Deadly Premonition is the definition of a cult classic. It's weird in a way that most general audiences won't get, but that's why fans love it. That's how I came to enjoy the original game. But with Deadly Premonition 2, I feel like it moved away from what I enjoyed. I wanted more of the horror aesthetic and the supernatural rather than the more action-focused gameplay with simple investigations. It shares elements but recombines them into a different flavor that some may still love, but left me feeling mixed. New players likely won't enjoy the poor frame rate and graphics, while returning players could miss the aspects that I did. I truly feel that if the game were better optimized and got rid of the slowdown and poor loading, it'd be welcoming. But that's just not here. If you simply want more of York, you'll get that, as the dialogue and voice acting is fantastic across the board, selling the strangeness of it all, but the gameplay and presentation is a little lacking. Hey, thanks for watching. This has been Creepy Elliot, and you can enjoy more of my content on my personal channel, but be sure to subscribe to Game Explained for more on the Switch and other things gaming.